Have you ever looked back to a job that you hated and thought to yourself, how did I ever work there? I do this a lot. Now, my first job, I hated it so much. It practically gave me PTSD. Now, I think a lot of people hate their first jobs. I don't know if it's because you're naive about the workforce or because the jobs actually suck, but either way, people hate their first jobs. Now, my first job, it really sucked. I won't say the name of the place I worked at, but you could probably figure it out. But I worked at a retail tire shop. It's known for being the biggest tire chain in the country. But if you go down like the subreddit rabbit hole or just see any post about this, people agree that working here is just one of the worst places you can ever work at. They call this place a straight up cult. And it practically was a cult. But before we get into the real gritty details of the job, I wanted to start to when I was still looking for my first job. The job market was so cooked. It still is cooked. So I graduated school and I decided to take the summer off as kind of the last summer, like the final send off of being a kid. But once September hit, I finally started filling in some job applications. And it really hit me just how messed up everything is. It took me like 5 months to actually get a job. I heard back from a few people, but most of the times you wouldn't even hear back from actual human beings. You would usually get an AI response or an email saying, "Thank you for applying, but unfortunately, this position is no longer open." And I still remember the moment I was fed up with this. I once had like a video interview for some company, I forget what it was. But like I dressed up and everything, I had my camera on, and when it started, the person wasn't even real. But eventually, after what felt like hundreds of applications, some place actually reached out. And it was this tire shop. Now, I was excited at first because I like working on cars, and I thought it'd be a fun place to work at. So it's time for the interview, and I dressed up for it. Some could say I overdressed. I had a button down, a sweater, some nice dress shoes. But the minute I met the guy interviewing me, you can tell off the bat that this guy was a snake. Like, he was professional, but you can tell he didn't mean any of it at the end of the day. And I should have seen the red flags during the interview because I brought my resume and stuff and I offered it to him. And he said, no, we don't need that here. He asked me a few questions, but the main question he asked me was, "So what do you like to do on your spare time?" The minute he asked me that, I should have turned tail and ran, because this was one of those companies where they say, "Oh, we're all a family here." And that's the last thing you want to hear. But after all that, I accepted the job because I needed the money. And I started, I think, a week or two after. I think 2 weeks after. Now, the first few weeks aren't bad. I'm getting used to everyone. I'm meeting people. Nobody seems too crazy, except my boss. I could tell he was going to be an issue. But no lie, after a few weeks of being there, this guy has a medical emergency, and he is absent for probably like 5 or 6 months. And it's a shame. You don't wish any of that on anybody. And he was still really young, but he was out for like 5 or 6 months. And it sounds awful to say, but while he was gone, those 5 or 6 months was the best time to work there. Because we had like these bosses coming in from different shops. So we never had like a designated boss. So we would just do whatever we want. We would kind of fool around and have fun all day, but we'll get into that later. First, I want to talk about the bad things. So 5 or 6 months go by, and then this boss, he comes back, and you could instantly feel a shift in the atmosphere when this guy starts running the shop again. There was a few things that really bothered me. The way he treated his workers was one of the worst things. He would yell at us all the time. He would curse us out. He would make like really derogatory comments too. It wasn't a good atmosphere. And all of my coworkers, they knew it too. We would all try to get him fired whenever his boss would come. We would practically beg him, like, this guy, he abuses us. You don't see it, but he treats us horribly. One of the things I hated so much was he would leave all the bay doors open, We had like 4 massive bay doors, and he would keep them open year round because it was quote unquote good for business, which is just about the stupidest thing I've ever heard. He would say, "Oh, people won't know we're open if we have those closed," but it would be torture. It wasn't bad in the summers, but during the winter when it got cold, it was bad. And the heat was usually broken, so not even that would help. Anytime there was snow on the ground, the cars would show up soaking wet, and it would go right through your gloves, and your hands would be like bright red, sometimes even purple. I still remember at some points there was a lot of downtime in the job, and I had like a little makeshift tire bed on the second floor, and I would like hide up there. And during the winters, there were times where I literally thought I was gonna die up there. Like they'd find me up there frozen a few hours after the place closes, and that would just be it. Now, I'm no stranger to being in the cold. I'm used to it. You can always put on more layers. But here comes the dress code. The dress code was so strict that we couldn't even put on like big jackets. He expected us to work in kind of like dress pants, dress shoes, a button down with a collar. Let me say that again. He had us changing tires in dress shoes. You know how many tires and wheels I had fall on my foot? And it hurt so bad because I was wearing dress shoes. Do you know how cold my feet got in the summer because I was wearing dress shoes? This place was insane. Also, you had to come in freshly shaven, like you're in the military. You couldn't have any scruff on your face. You always had to be clean shaven. I remember one time he came up to me and he physically touched me. He touched the side of my cheek and he was like, hey, what's that? Like he was such an awful boss. He also forced us to run to every single car, run when we were changing tires. We had to do things as quick as possible. And changing tires, it's not an easy job. Sometimes you get heavy vehicles where if you rush and you do something fast, you might slip something. You might slip a disc, you might slip on the floor, you might get seriously hurt. But hey, he didn't care as long as the bay times were under, I think, 18 minutes. He was happy. Let me say that again. He wanted us to change 4 tires in a car in 18 minutes. Now, there are so many more stupid things I could talk about this job, but I'll just get to my breaking point and why I quit. You see, it all went back to the dress code. Now, everything we wore, it had to come from their shop. And the shirts we wore, there were like these button downs. They had buttons all the way down. You had to tuck them in. But on the website, there was also this more comfortable version of the shirt, which only had 2 of the top buttons. It didn't have the employee's name, and it didn't have the company name. Now, this shirt, it was so much more comfortable than the other. It had like air holes in the back so it can breathe through. So all my coworkers, they started ordering these shirts, and they were wearing them. And I thought the shirts, they looked a lot better too. So I was asking the ones who changed them, like, oh, our boss lets you wear those? And they would always say, yeah, he never said anything yet. Now, I always got this impression that our boss didn't like me, and this was just the final nail in the coffin that proved that. I told everyone else, here, I'm gonna order these shirts, but watch. He's gonna say something about it when I change into it. He let you guys wear them for a few weeks, but the minute I do, he's probably gonna say something. And that's exactly what happened. The minute I got these shirts and put them on, he would pull me aside and he would scream at me. I remember the day he pulled me aside and he physically grabbed my shirt and he was like, hey, these are stupid. Don't wear these. They don't look as good as the other ones. And I was like, hey man, what gives? These shirts, they're on the sites. They're a part of the company uniform. Why can't I wear them? And he basically said, oh, because I said so. And he grabbed my shirt and he said, don't wear this again. And that's when I realized it just wasn't worth it anymore. I was so fed up with this guy and his antics that I quit the day after. I told everyone, hey, this is my last day. And I never even told him I quit. I just stopped showing up. Now again, I could talk about so many more stupid things he made us do, but I don't want to make this video an hour long. But this place wasn't all bad. There were a few benefits to working here. One of the things was the coworkers. We bonded so much because the place was so awful that we actually became good friends. Like, everyone was funny. We all got along together. It was just a good time whenever our boss wasn't there. We would have water fights, we would fight with the brooms, we would chase each other around. So sure, sometimes we were deserved a yelling, but most of the times we were just having fun. And we would always get the work done, but we would have fun doing it. Like these coworkers, they were real ones. Like they would always buy each other food, they would buy me food. They were just all in all good people. We would throw like our cones for our air check up on the roof, which was pretty funny. We had this huge tape ball, which we would make from the tape that comes on each tire. And it got to like the size of a basketball, and we would like throw it around and kick it around. Again, we had a lot of downtime because this was a struggling tire shop, and my boss hated that. He hated seeing people having fun. This is the last story about this place. This is probably the most wild one. But one time we were working, I was like 8 hours into a 12-hour shift, so I was dying. I was hungry, I was tired, everyone was tired. And me and my coworkers were all like talking in a circle, talking about, I don't know, some crap. But we see in the distance, there's this lady like walking to us from the woods. And it's pretty cold outside. It's not dead of winter, but it's pretty cold. But she comes walking to us in almost no clothing. She has like this really small sports bra on, and you can almost say like a swimsuit or maybe like an underwear. But she comes walking to our store in the distance from the woods, and she's carrying this box, and I'm thrown off guard. Like all my senses are blaring, like I'm on edge, and everyone else could see that. But she comes walking to us with a smile, and she gets to us. She's like, "Hey boys, I brought something." And she opens the box, and it's like a dozen donuts. And she says, "Hey, I just brought these for you guys. I'm just bringing them to people." And we accept it. We're a bit hesitant, but we accept it. We thank her, and she just walks back into the woods. Now, of course, we all thought they were poisoned, but I was so hungry. I was the first one to cave in. I ate like 4 donuts. I ended up being fine, but I'm glad she didn't poison him. Don't eat food from random naked people, please. But yeah, there were funny, weird memories like that sometimes made it worth it. I had a lot of fun with my coworkers. My boss, not so much. He was a jerk. I wish the best for him. I wish the best for all of my coworkers. But yeah, he made it hell to work there. Like, he made it so bad that I was hating being there every single day. I was physically angry, and that's not the spot anyone wants to be in. So if you hate your job as much as I did, please quit. Find another avenue of work. You're not obligated to work under any of those circumstances, under any conditions you don't enjoy. So when you quit, please either have some money saved up or just at least a plan B. Because like we said in the beginning, the job market is cooked right now. If you quit off the spot, you might not have a secondary option, but just have something in mind. But please, if you hate your job, leave. It's not good for your mental health.